minutes according to Mr. Jobs. Are we ready, Ms. Holder?
Yes, sir. We have about 2 minutes, but we're streaming, so it'll be live when you're ready.
Okay.
And I'm going to start the recording, just so you'll. Your mics are live.
Joel and I can't hear.
What'd you say? Like to reconvene the regular board meeting, Sampson County Board of Commissioners. This time, I recognize Vice Chair Lee.
Would you bow your heads in prayer, please? Dear Father, for the blessings of this day, we thank you. Thank you for your mercy, your grace, and your love. Please give us your guidance and your wisdom this evening during this meeting. Amen. Would you join me as we pledge? Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lee. At this time, I'd like to call to order a public hearing regarding the redrawing of commissioner districts here in Sampson County. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to take public comment on changes that need to be made to Sampson County Commissioner districts following the 2020 census results. According to the 2020 census results, the county had a slight population loss overall. Some individual commissioner districts within the county gained population while others lost. Because these gains and losses put some of the commissioner districts more than 5% over or under the ideal population district, we are required by law to engage in the redistricting process to better equalize the population in each district. Secondly, I want to thank all the members of the public that are here tonight, which it appears to be light. However, we will take public comment to Friday, October 29th. Ms. Holder, can you please let the public know the email address and the mail and the first-class mail address?
Yes, sir. They can be mailed to the clerk at Susan H, SUSANH, at sampsonnc.com, or by mail at the office of the county manager, 406 County Complex Road, Clinton, North Carolina, 28328.
Thank you, Ms. Holder. While the law does not require the county to hold a public hearing as a part of this process, the commissioners wanted to do so because your comments and input are important to us. While we will take your comments and suggestions into consideration as we move forward with adopting a new set of commissioner districts for the county at our next meeting, November 1. Certainly want to thank everybody that has helped facilitate this public hearing and this meeting. To assist us with the redistricting process, the commissioners have engaged Michael McKnight, an attorney with Ogletree Dinkins Law Firm, and John Morgan, a demographer with Applied Research Coordinates. We worked with Ogletree Dinkins and Mr. Morgan, or the county did. I don't believe any commissioner was present for the last redistricting, but the county had worked with Ogletree Dinkins and Mr. Morgan during the last round of redistricting after 2020 census. So both were familiar with Sampson County and the history of our districts. Both of them are here tonight. Mr. McKnight and Mr. Morgan have met individually with each commissioner to obtain input about districts, the communities within them, and to discuss the changes that will be required to bring the population of each district in compliance with the law. Based on input provided by the commissioners, Mr. Morgan has developed a draft map to use as a starting point to illustrate the types of changes that will be required. In a moment, Mr. Morgan will explain more about the impact of the census results on the existing district lines and walk us through the changes that were made within the district. Before I turn over to Mr. Morgan for his remarks, please understand that the purpose of tonight's meeting is not to engage in debate with commissioners or each other about the new districts, what they should look like, or any other aspect of the process, but rather to allow the commissioners to hear directly from any member of the public who wishes to speak on the issue. The commissioners will not respond to any comments that are made tonight to express approval or disapproval. If you, the public, have any certain specific concerns about factual issues such as the census results showed, where certain lines are on the map, or other questions you may believe that you believe that the commissioners, Mr. Morgan and Mr. McKnight, may be able to answer related to the topic, you may ask them, or we will do our best to answer the questions. Before opening, having opened the public hearing, at this time, I would recognize Mr. Morgan to make his presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners. Let me just plug in my laptop so we can look at some pretty pictures. So, again, my name is John Morgan. I've done redistricting in 20 states. This is my fourth redistricting cycle. So I've done work in North Carolina and Virginia, South Carolina. I've done work in Georgia, Florida, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all over. And I started work in this field in 1991. So this is my fourth cycle. And let's see. Okay. So as Commissioner Wooten mentioned, the districts at the end of the decade, at the end of 2020, after 10 years, were outside of population alignment, meaning some districts were below -5 or above +5. Generally speaking, the Supreme Court and other jurisdictions in the courts have recognized a leeway of about ±5%. And while they say it's not a safe harbor, from a practical point of view, it is a safe harbor. And so when we redraw these districts, we have to bring them into some kind of population alignment, but it doesn't have to be zero. It's not like a congressional plan where they really want you to get to a zero population. So you have some flexibility. So starting out, for example, these are the proposed districts, and I'll get to that, but before we made any changes or proposed changes, District 1 was overpopulated, but District 4 and 5 were underpopulated quite a bit. So in one case, one of the districts was underpopulated by almost 12%. So clearly there would be a need to move population around. So in doing that, what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk to the commissioners and get a good sense of where your districts and communities are, and then to try to preserve those communities in the new districts, recognizing that there have to be some population changes. So starting up in the north, the first district, Newton Grove and the area not far from Dunn on the north side of the county, was overpopulated to some extent, but because it's at the north end of the county, the changes are not very dramatic. It's kind of like an endpoint of the county. And likewise, at the other end of the county, District 4 was underpopulated by quite a bit, but your starting point is still the southern end of the county and you kind of build up. And so you have, again, population overage in the north and population underage, if you will, in the south. And so you have to kind of balance those through the remaining districts. So with that in mind, we looked at District 1 and we made some changes, and I can show you, if you like, the existing districts and show you what some of the changes were. But basically, this portion of existing District 1 was put into District 2 and a little bit was put into District 5, and that kind of finishes District 1. It wasn't a lot of big changes. And then District 4, again, we'll just kind of go at the opposite ends of the county, with a lot of population negative on the deviation side, it was necessary to take some additional population. So additional population was taken along in several places. And then you have, while District 5 is primarily Clinton, Clinton is also in two other districts as well, District 2 and District 3. So in the Clinton area, you can see that most of Clinton is in District 5, and then some portions of Clinton are in District 2 and 3. And so that's the way the districts are now. So we kept a similar concept, but we had to move some population around. And then I guess the last sort of part of the puzzle is District 3 kind of wraps around and takes some of the area that surrounds District 4. And that was, again, similar in concept, but a little bit less territory there than was before. So let me bring up the population numbers for the proposed districts. So, sorry, that's the compactness. Let's try the population. One moment. I have many things going on, so bear with me. At least I'm not doing, I've done 3 state capitals in 3 days before, so that's always a bit of a challenge. So this is the population report of the proposed districts. The ideal district size is just under 12,000. So overall, the entire county has a population of 59,000, so you divide that equally, and you end up with 11,807. So the new proposed districts have a range of minus 1.63% to positive 2, and that's an overall range of plus or minus 3.8. So it's still a pretty small range. You're within that 4 instead of a 10 range, which is permissible. So again, these are the deviations for that. And the other thing I'd point out, and I think you'll know this when we look at it visually, but the new proposed districts are considerably more compact than the existing districts. And that's something that makes a lot of sense when you try to keep the districts in a more compact configuration. And that's just to give you an idea of what that is. There's several measurements of compactness, but some of the ones that the courts would potentially look at or people look at are what's called Polsby-Popper. And what Polsby-Popper does is it measures the area of the district. So if you took a rubber band and you went all the way around the district and then you expanded that, you would compare the area enclosed by the rubber band to an area of a circle with that same circumference. And so it's basically a value between 1 and 100. It's how well does this district fill a circle. So the previous districts, some of these numbers were quite low, 0.08, 0.06, 0.07, 0.13, 0.25. So those are the 5 districts. The proposed districts are not single digits. It's 0.17, 0.16, 0.15, 0.16. And the reality is, Sampson County is kind of long and narrow, so you're going to have some districts that are going to have to conform to your geographic boundaries. And so you're not going to have districts that are just circles, because you're just not going to have perfectly configured circles. So let me see, I'll bring up the existing districts quickly and just show some of the changes. Okay, so here. So these are the existing districts, and you can see that there's a lot of crenellations and curves and a lot of ragged edges, let's say, in some of the districts. And so you can see kind of the eyeball test. This is less compact than the proposed districts, which you see here. So District 1, 2, 5, 3, and 4. And then I'll show one map that has them together. Okay, so these are the proposed districts, and then what I do is I'll put an overlay of the current districts. Okay, so the red lines, and we'll just sort of walk through this just to give an idea of what changed here. So as I mentioned, District 1 has not a lot of change in terms of geography because it's at the end of the county and there's only one place for it to go. So it was overpopulated, so some population was given to District 2, some to District 5. And then District 5, you can see the line here was very irregular, if you will. But the new version, this follows one of the precinct boundaries here. So this extension down here follows a precinct boundary. And then you see that this area was filled in instead of following the red line. This area here was relatively the same. This dividing line between 4 and 5 is the same. And then as you get into the Clinton area, District 5 took in a little bit more of Clinton than it currently has. District 3 retained a similar portion that it had, and District 2 had a similar portion. So not a lot of big changes in that area. And then in the south, rather than having District 3 come all the way down to within, maybe a mile of the county border, here it's filled in a lot more. So District 4 is now much more compact than it was before. And then again, similar areas up here in the north were given to 3 instead of 4, so that smooths the lines out a lot. And, moving forward, once you get used to the new population, any sort of new districts would be closer to what you'd see here in the proposed districts. So this adjusts for population in 1, 2, 5, 3, and 4. And then I think at this point, let me just see, we talked a little bit about Clinton. The footprint is similar, but a little bit more into 5. And then I think I talked a little bit about adding population into 4. And then we talked about removing portions of 4 to go into 3. And as far as I know, all the commissioners' residences are in the right districts. I tried very carefully to avoid putting someone out of their district. I don't think that was done. And let's see, I think that covers the overall footprint of the districts. And then I'll be happy to take specific questions or general questions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Commissioners, at this time, do you have any questions for Mr. Morgan? Hearing none, Ms. Holder, is there anyone signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Again, we consider, thank you, Mr. Moore, we consider public comment to October 29th at 5. Ms. Holder, one more time if you would.
Yes, sir. They can come to the clerk's email at susanh@sampsonnc.com or to our mailing address at 406 County Complex Road, Clinton, North Carolina, 28328.
And our intent is to have it on the agenda for November 1st. Correct, Mr. Starr?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Well, excuse me. If there are no other questions or comments, let's move to item 2. Mr. Causey?
Mr. Chairman, if you will allow me, I'm going to take my mask off for just a minute because I'm already hot. I have prepared for you a revised proposal for evaluating county employee salaries, and I sent this to all of the commissioners, I think it was on Friday morning, so I am not going to read this in its entirety. However, if the commissioners decide to approve this recommendation, I do plan to mail it to all of the department heads. It seems that sometimes when we get into things like this, we can create some confusion or misunderstanding or misinformation unbeknownst to any of us, and we want to move forward with as much clarity as we can. To just encapsulate what is going on, we had considered some actions back in September. However, since then, I've had multiple conversations with several of the commissioners, talking about concerns relative to the sheriff's office in particular, and the general departments as well. At the same time, Mrs. Dillman has been working on doing a market study, getting prices for the market study for the 3 departments or 3 sections that you had mentioned before. The challenge we found in doing that, apparently everybody else is out doing market studies now. And she had several respondents that they'd be glad to help us late next spring or in July, but they just weren't in a position to have the work that they could contribute toward this at this point in time. Secondly, with some of the concerns, so we came back in and considered all that people had shared with us and came up with a revised thing, which is what we have listed as number 1. And essentially what we're talking about doing is doing an internal review as quickly as we can for all the departments. We recognize and agree that there are some legitimate concerns in the sheriff's departments, but our analysis sort of suggests to us that those concerns are very similar to all the other departments. In hearing all of you talk about the fairness and the transparency that we want, we felt the best thing to do was come back and try to evaluate everybody to try to get us on as equal a footing as possible. However, I do share with you that will not do it, because what we're doing is going to be very limited in scope. When you get finished with that, there's still going to be questions